Right, so in previous videos, I've shown you how to, via VirtualBox of course, I've shown you how to install FreeBSD and how to install a simple desktop on top of it. And in this video, we're going to be tweaking it a little bit so it feels better for a desktop. Because FreeBSD by default is a server OS that can be made into a desktop OS. We need to do a bit of work on it first. We'll be spending a lot of time in the terminal in this video, and it may not be the most thrilling of things to view, but we'll crack on. I'm going to be using the editor of my choice. You can use Nano or Vi or whatever you want. I use Edit, which is really just an alternative name for EE, Easy Editor, but it's what I like to use. We'll be editing loader.conf first, and it's loaded by the FreeBSD loader, which then loads all modules in before the kernel boots. So it gets things in before things start rolling, basically. And a lot of these tweaks, not just in loader.conf, but for the rest of the video, you don't have to do. There's perhaps one or two that may be recommended, but the rest you don't have to do. You don't have to do nothing like this. It's your own discretion, and there are a lot more available tweaks out there and settings which I'm not covering in this video. I'll leave some links in the description box down below as to various sources where you can perhaps try them out and test them, etc. But you use them at your own risk. They may, if you make some spelling mistake or syntax error, it may not be able to boot again. Just use them with caution, and just don't use everything. So anyway, we'll get cracking on with this loader.conf. And there's already some things filled out in it already, and that's because it was put there when we initially installed the system. I like to put this little divider to show what was already there. And I also like to put a small description of what I'm adding so I can refer back to it later. You don't have to do this, but I like to do it. The first one we're doing is auto boot delay, and we're going to set that to 3. By default, it's something like 10. And so you wait 10 seconds before FreeBSD boots. With this way, it's 3, but you can still press a key quickly. The next one is going to increase some limits for desktop use. They're set a bit low by default, but we need to, you don't need to, but you can increase them to make things feel a bit more snappy. And the first one we're doing is to do with shared memory. We're going to set that to 1024. The second one is it does the maximum number of shared memory identifiers for system-wide, so we just need to increase that a little bit. The next one is it's the maximum number of processors, so we're going to set that to quite a large figure. That should be enough for a desktop activity. The next one is to do with power. We're going to change it so it controls the behavior of PCI devices when a driver is not loaded. So it doesn't, you're going to basically switch it off if it's not using it. More really of interest for laptop users than desktop, but still, something to perhaps try. Next, we're going to increase ZFS transaction timeout. Again, it was more interest for laptop users. And this one, it changes the sync interval. So we'll make it a little bit longer than it is. I'm going to change this to 10. Right, so I think that's it for loader.conf at the moment. We're going to perhaps go back to it later, but for now, we'll do something else. And the next one is sysctl.conf or systemcontrol.conf. Now, many of these tunables, as they call them, can be used on the fly to test. Say, for instance, you put sysctl kern.core dump. It will show you that the present setting is 1. We can change that to 0. So that means if anything crashes, you don't get a rather large, intimidating file written to your folder or your directory. And if you want a description of what each sysctl command is, if you put -d, it shows you a lot. Enable or disable core dump. Maybe I shouldn't have chosen that one, but you know what I mean. It'll give you a small description. It's just a little useful tip. I only learned that the other day, the -d. It's quite useful. Anyway, let's edit this sysctl.conf file, and it's read when the system goes into multi-user mode and to set the default settings in the kernel. And like I say, many of them you can change on the fly, but if you want to make it permanent, so when your system boots up the tech alt here, this is where you put them. And the first one we're going to do is prevent shared memory from being swapped to disk. And it kind of, it's memory segments to be mapped to unpageable physical RAM. Next, we're going to increase scheduler. This one perhaps is a little bit more important than the rest, kind of. This changes the default, which is usually set for a kind of a balance for server use, into something which is more tuned for desktop use. So even if you really don't put many others, then this is the one that perhaps you should put in. And it allows setting of how often the CPU scheduler switches between various tasks. So rather than these sort of like X windows or whatever you're using being bogged down and a bit unresponsive, then this, when your system's doing something else, this will give priority to that. Next, we're going to allow normal users to mount drives. Again, this is like the previous one. It's kind of important if you want users to be able to put in USB sticks or CD-ROMs, DVD-ROMs, etc. without having to go into root. And that's it for now, I think. Like I say, we might come back to that. Right, so rc.conf is where the kind of like we set everything up last. And so the first one we're going to do is enable the Linuxulator, which is the Linux ABI, so we can run some Linux programs if you want, like for instance browsers and that lot. And so we enable at boot time, it's Linux_enable equals yes. And the next one we're going to do, we have to install something first, and it's going to be webcam-d. So if you've got a webcam attached to your system, you'll need this to get that up and going. So we install webcam-d, and we need to install, I don't know, let's have a look. V4L utils, it's like video Linux tools. And once that's done, we'll go back into rc.conf. And we'll go back down to the bottom and enable webcam if it's supported. Hopefully yours is. And now we can put webcam-d enable equals yes. There are some other parameters you put in, but that's for another video. Next is kld_list, which loads some kernel modules, like for instance drivers or file systems, etc. So you put your Linux 64 to run. Without these, you can't have your Linuxulator going. If you're using NVIDIA cards, you put NVIDIA or NVIDIA-mode set. Or if you're running an Intel machine with Intel graphics, you put i915KMS. I showed you this in the last video already if you want desktop going. But for now, we're just going to put fuse fs and them, and just leave it at that because I'm running it in VirtualBox. dbus_enable, and it's used for inter-process communications, which means if you want one thing to talk to another to let it know what it's doing, you're going to need dbus going. I think Firefox needs that, I'm not sure. Next is devfs_system rule set equals. Now this is interesting, and if you want printers and stuff like going, you're going to have to do this. So it's devfs.rules_common, and once we've put that in, we need to define some extra stuff. So we're going to create devfs.rules. We reference that in the rc.conf file. And it will be blank, well, possibly. It'll be blank when we go into it. It's a new file. And there's a lot to put in here. But the most important part is the brackets, square brackets, devfs_rules_common equals 7. It kind of likes an identifier to let you know, the system know that you're referencing it. And this in connection with what we put in rc.conf is just really, it's to let the system know there's some things that you've attached after everything's been booted up and loaded in. So it provides an easy way to create and apply devfs rules, even for devices that are not available at boot, so if you add them in later. And I don't have to technically put the numbers in the square brackets there, but I like to do it. It's force of habit. There's a lot to be put in here, and I'll leave a link in the description box down below for a list of ones that you can perhaps use. Right, next, so we need to edit the devfs.conf, and this one is already populated with some entries. But we're going to create it at the bottom here. And just like the devfs.rules, there's a lot of entries we need to do. And this is basically, the top lot is optical media, like DVD, CDs, etc. If you want to access them, this allows you to access them. Allow all USB devices to be mounted. So it goes with that VFS user mount setting earlier on. These are like external drives that we're adding. And miscellaneous other stuff for stuff that, you know, you want to add on later. And we'll save that. Next, we're setting up login.conf, and this is really to do with, you know, language settings or keyboard mappings and stuff like that. Things might get a bit funky in some terminals or applications. It's good to have this set. And we need to add this highlighted thing at the end, otherwise it won't stick. So there's a lot of examples that we are shown. You can look at them if you wish. So we scroll up and we need to go to the end of a long list. Hopefully you can find it. All the way up. Keep going. Good grief. Yeah, that's the one. So when you see it hasn't got a lot of hashtags. There we go. So we need to go at the end there. We need to change the default setting here and change it to your own language choice. For me, it's English_GB. And just put a little colon there. Save that. And that's all we need to do on this. Clear screen. Right, we run that thing that we highlighted earlier, and that makes sure it sticks. Right, we're setting up profile next. It never stops, does it? And in this, again, it's to do with sort of like locale and language, and make sure everything is as it should be. So in here, we need to sort of like emphasize that the language equals the English_GB. Again, you can put yours in there if yours is US, etc. And this mirrors what we put in the previous file. So semicolon and then export lang. And charset equals, and then UTF-8. Export again, charset. And that should do it. Before we reboot and test everything out, I'm going to show you what locale tells you for your user account right now. And you can see everything set to UTF-8, which may not give you the correct characters in when you type in out, etc. So we'll reboot, and hopefully all our tweaks will work. It's difficult, some of these tweaks, because it's how it feels, and I can't convey that over in the video, but we'll see how it works. Well, I can already tell that the countdown is a lot quicker for it to boot, so that's one that's worked. Usually 10, But now it went for 3, so that seemed a lot quicker. And we'll just wait for the system to go through all the various stages. Okie doke. And we'll log in. Okie dokie. And if I type in locale again, see it's changed. There's the previous one on the right hand side, and now it's English_GB. So everything seems right. All the keys, all the characters are correct. Brilliant. So they're doing exactly what they should. Right then. So let's go into the desktop. And again, you know, I can feel the difference, even though it's virtual machine. And it would be the same if you put it onto real hardware. There's a difference in how everything is respond. Everything feels really quick, fluid, and just generally better, more responsive. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. So we'll just come out of there. We'll just 1 or 2 final things that we can do. You don't have to do these. These are like icing on the cake, as it were. But we'll have a look. Right then, so let's have a look at some of these. So we're going to root again. And we're going to add something to the sysctl.conf file. The one where it's, you can try these on the fly if you want. And you put them in here if you want it to sync while you reboot. So there's a VFS user mount. We're going to put in HW hardware, and then we're going to put yeah, there's an annoying thing if you're on real hardware and your system beeps all the time. We're just going to turn that off. You don't have to do that. It does get annoying after a while. And the next one we're going to do is we're going to go back into boot loader.conf. And we're going to add load MMC. So if you've got any SD cards or multimedia cards, etc., we're going to add support for a reader. If you've got it on your, you're going to plug one in, or you've got one in your system via one of them fancy 5 1/4 drive bay adapters. So MMC underscore load equals yes. We're going to do the same thing for MSC SD and for SD HCI. So this should take care of that if you've got any SD cards to plug in. And next we're going to just change the settings for a tappy. So on this allows devices to connect to a computer using the, you know, the SATA interface, such as CDs, DVDs, Blu-rays and that lot, via the CAM system. And the next one we're going to try is temperature sensors. So if you've got an Intel Core thermal sensors in your Intel machine, this will allow you to sort of like access the temperature via various programs and that lot. And if you've got AMD, this is what you put for that. I'm going to put them both in here, but you know, you just, if you've got one or the other, just put one in. Next, we're going to create, it's like a little RAM disk thing. It's just like a little scratch file, little thing that's, whatever's in there gets erased, obviously, when the machine reboots. I use an expanded one. I think it's about 8 gigabytes. It's quite useful. I usually download to it, and I don't have to bother deleting the download because it's gone next time I boot the machine. Removable media Unicode. Yeah, so does things look right? And that's it. A lot of these ones you don't need to use. There's probably a couple that you do, but they work for me. They may not work for you, but they should work for you. But use them at your own risk. And it's a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. You know, everything from installing FreeBSD, to setting up a desktop in FreeBSD, to putting some tweaks. And it's not even, we're not even finished with the process yet. But it's worth it because you get a stable system, it's reliable, it's quick, and at the end of the day, that's all you need. There are alternatives you can use. You can use GhostBSD. A lot of this work is done for you in GhostBSD. You know, you load the system up, everything's configured, everything's tweaked, and it runs just as well as you can make it yourself. But this is one of them occasions where perhaps you want to roll it yourself, and that's fine. There's a lot to learn with FreeBSD and how you tweak things. Not all tweaks are necessary. A lot of people tell you not to do it at all. Some people tell you that that's what you need to do. You use it on your own judgment. Anyway, hopefully this video was as interesting as it could be, considering we did a lot of typing, and hopefully you gain something from it. Anyway, if you like this video, then please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you've given one or two of my videos a thumbs up, then please consider subscribing. It's the best way to help the channel. And if you do subscribe, then please hit the notification bell so you don't miss any new uploads. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time. This and every other video on my channel has been made using FreeBSD and open source software.